On today's video, let's discuss briefly why physical media is still my preferred method, though despite that, I still do engage in a lot of digital media. You'll see what I mean in a few moments.
It's morphin' time!
Special shout out to our new channel member in the Sound Squadron Commander tier, Sab. Also special shout out to all our channel members, including Captain Tiers, Infinity Wartorn, Don Ranger Power, JoJo Star, Jamie's World, Spin-54, Psycho O's, Dr. Grid, Super Shaddix Boom, Rabbit Man, The Nerd Channel, Primary Almond, Tom McKay, Matthias Laura, Donnie Waldman, and Jeremy Carr. Thank you to everybody for your support. If you'd like to join, hit the join button down below or the link in the description. Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to a discussion video. I'm working on my Marvel Legends 2023 rundown, which should be coming out in a couple days. If it's not already out, please stay tuned, but that is coming, so I decided to do kind of something simple. My friend Pyrus Masquerade kind of suggests this idea to talk about like why physical media matters to me, and I kind of want to just discuss physical media versus digital media in sort of a short form segment, if that makes sense. Clearly, I love physical media, if you can't tell by my like wall of Gundam Blu-Rays and anime Blu-Rays behind me. But I do think that there is kind of a warped discussion that sometimes happens, and other creators have talked about this, where you get like so wrapped up into the physical media is the greatest thing ever that you don't realize exactly what else is going on. So what I want to talk about is why I prefer physical media for movies, for TV, for games, for comics, but kind of what the benefits are of digital media on that sort of discussion point. So what we're going to do is just kind of go, section by section. We're going to start with Blu-Rays, because I clearly love Blu-Rays. I've done a ton of videos on this channel, and I've sort of evolved as a physical media collector, and specifically for Blu-Rays and DVDs. My standards are a little bit different than they were before. Like I used to have like really ridiculously high, impossible to meet standards on stuff, or was a little too forgiving just because it was on physical. And so I've kind of evolved that over time, just as I've continued to do things like this. But one of my things I want to talk about is what I love about physical discs for media. So here's, I just have a stack of examples. I'll just talk about each of them. So Gundam 0083 is kind of like one of my comfort Gundam shows. I know it really well. Watched it a lot. It's like if I, have a sick day and I just want to watch something, I'll put on 0083 or Zeta or something. But 0083, I believe, isn't currently streaming anywhere. So if I don't have this Blu-ray, it's going to be hard to me to just go pull it up somewhere. Like, yeah, there are other means to get stuff aside from, streaming and disc. But having it on disc, I can just pop this open, pop the disc in my player, and then I can watch, several hours without having to get up and, switch discs, which is good, especially for like a day where I'm kind of not feeling my best. But that being said, there is a benefit to streaming where you could watch like all 13 episodes in one go without having to get up. And that's something I do think about as well. Which is also why I love Discotech doing standard definition Blu-ray. Because like, for example, if I wanted to watch all of Laserion in one go, which is insane, it's a 45 episode show. It's all on one disc. I can just hit play all. And so there is some benefit to that. And also, like, if I'm watching it, I can just leave it in the player. I don't have to take it out if that's just the thing I'm watching on that particular player. And so I like things like that, because this is more convenient than having to swap discs every few episodes. Though I don't mind doing that because, one of the other things about streaming is, internet connections. If your internet connection goes out, your streaming goes out. Whereas your internet connection goes out, your Blu-rays still work. So there's a lot of benefit there. Okay, here's another example of something I prefer to have on physical media. X-Men Days of Future Past, the Rogue cut. I find this to be the superior cut of the movie. In fact, when the movie came out and they announced that there was going to be a version later that included Rogue on it, I was just going to wait because, what's X-Men without Rogue? But, there's, fancy special edition came like a year after the movie. But if you go to find Days of Future Past on streaming, like on Disney Plus or something, it's just a theatrical. You don't get the Rogue cut. You can buy it digitally on like iTunes, but my thing, and this is like a consistent thing, if I'm gonna buy something digital and there's a physical version in existence, I'll just pay for the physical, even if it's like, I'm not sure how it'll be. If my only option is you can buy it digital or you can buy it physical, but you can't stream it anywhere, I'll just end up buying it. But then on the flip side of that, I'll try out movies on streaming. Like I didn't bring it as an example, but I didn't watch the DreamWorks film The Bad Guys when it came out in theaters, and I didn't buy the Blu-ray when it came out, but when I watched it on Netflix, I really liked it, so I went and bought the Blu-ray after. And I think that's kind of a healthier way to approach some of these things, because another thing that physical media collectors we end up doing is we just end up buying anything we want to watch. It's why I have a too long of a discotheque backlog of things to watch that I'm working on chipping myself away at before I go back and buy any more titles, because I think it's kind of like, it's one thing just to collect it and it's another thing to watch it, but I think in watching it is almost more important than collecting it, because ultimately if you just buy it and then it sits on the shelf forever, it's just sitting on the shelf, you're not really enjoying it. And then sometimes I'll do that to complete collections. Like there's some Sonic shows like Underground that I don't necessarily plan to watch right now, but at least I have the option. And then that also comes with the trap of doing videos on physical media, because then I buy stuff to make videos on, and then, it kind of just cycles through. Like I'm working my way through the Sentai DVDs for a bit. I just had them all and didn't actually watch like half of them. And that's something I want to kind of like work on doing better at. Now, another classic, not on streaming, Legion of Superheroes, the DC animated show from the late 2000s, one of my favorite shows of all time. This show got a full HD Blu-ray release, hasn't popped up on any of the streaming services so far, at least last I checked. I could be wrong on that. It wasn't on HBO Max, it wasn't on DC Universe, it's not on Netflix or Prime Video as far as I know. I think you can buy it digitally, but again, if you're going to buy it digitally, I'd rather just buy it physical. But, there's a factor in it's sometimes easier to just get the physical disc. But if you're trying to like, watch it with people, like, oh, let's all watch this on like Discord, it's harder when you only have a physical disc that you can't stream to your friends or anything, because, there's copyright protections and stuff. And just in general, playing Blu-rays on computers is a little tricky. So, there is some downside to that. But it is nice that the show has a release and it's out there. It just is not super accessible if you're wanting to watch it sight unseen. Here's an example, Transformers Earthspark. Love this show. I'm probably going to rewatch Season 1 when Season 2 happens. Probably not going to rewatch it on the DVD, though. I'd probably just watch it on Paramount Plus, because I would have liked a Blu-ray for Earthspark. I'm still going to buy the DVDs because I do want to have the physical copy, but I'd still rather prefer to watch it on the streaming service in HD, because, yeah, it's not an HD on here. It's an HD produced show. It looks better on streaming. And that's probably like their intention behind putting it on DVD and whatnot. But, when I'm going to go rewatch Earthspark, I'm going to watch it on Paramount Plus, because that'll be a higher quality presentation. But if it disappears from Paramount Plus, because it's happened so many times with so many shows, and then what are you left with? Either a digital purchase, which can also get kind of screwy with license restrictions, or your physical copy that you have as a backup. So even if it's not in HD, it's still good to have that physical backup, even if, it's not full resolution, because you never know when it might disappear. And I hope that never happens to the show, but it's a real possibility, because it happened even to a Star Trek show with Star Trek Prodigy, and for a while before it popped up on Netflix, the physical Blu-ray disc was the only way to watch the show officially. And then sometimes you're not sure about a show because you've never heard anybody talk about it, like Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes. One of my favorite Marvel shows. It's probably my favorite Fantastic Four series. I bought this DVD set for $10 on Amazon when I hadn't seen the show, because I think I only caught the couple episodes that actually air on Cartoon Network, but there was really no other way to watch it at the time. And so I bought the DVD and loved it. But that's a bit of a gamble. But there is a DVD set out there for those of you who watch it on Disney Plus. Even though this DVD is out of print, it's still kind of around. Sometimes you don't want to just go buy a show to find out if you like it, because then what if you don't like it? Then you're stuck with the physical copy. Then you got to try to sell it. Then you spent money on it. So it is beneficial to watch it on streaming and then decide later. But back before more streaming options existed, you just kind of had to go, I guess I'll buy it because it's Fantastic Four. And that's kind of like the big toss-up that comes up, that doesn't come up as much anymore. You have the opportunity to trial run some things before you purchase them. And I think that's always a benefit in the long run. And then one other benefit of streaming is correcting errors. I love X-Men the Animated Series. Watching it on DVD is a headache. It's not any better quality on streaming, because this is still an SD show. It's never had a remaster. But all the episodes are out of order on here. I was following Eric Lewald's behind-the-scenes book to make the order. And the thing was, watching the show, I had to get up every other episode. After season 1 and 2, every other episode every episode almost, I'd have to get up and change the disc, because they mixed up all the episodes on the later volumes, just in some random order. On streaming, it's been fixed. You can watch X-Men the Animated Series in order. And because there's no bonus features on these, yeah, it's nice having the physical backup, but it's a little bit easier to watch it on streaming, because jumping around the order on disc just it takes a ton of effort, and it slows down your watching for sure. So something I don't talk on the channel much about is novels, mostly because most of the novels I read are Star Trek novels, and I'm always like super behind. Like, I'm just not super great at reading novels compared to comic books, but I do read novels. A lot of them are sci-fi novels. I've read a couple things that are not Star Trek, but it's mostly Star Trek because I find those the most interesting. I can't read novels digitally. I just can't. There's so many services like Kindle and all that with ebooks, and sometimes you can only get stuff through ebook because it's like physically out of print. I just can't read novels digitally. It just hurts my eyes, even if it's like tone adjusted and stuff. I just much prefer to read like a physical novel. I like the look at the pages, I like the feel of it. It gets me in the mindset of reading a novel more so when I'm reading a physical than a digital. It's been tricky because like Digimon Seekers is like a light novel online only, and that's been harder to read, not just because of the weird translation, but like it's just staring into the computer screen. So I prefer reading books in print, like just novels. I'd rather do it in print. Here's a corner of the room you don't normally see. Some video game figures up here. There's also more physical media. Look at this madness. It's slightly out of hand. Anyways, let's talk video games, because video games I'm kind of in a weird spot on. Because you know how I talk about with movies and TV shows, like if I love it, I'm going to own a physical copy, right? Plain and simple, typically go with physical copies, but sometimes I try things out on streaming. Video games, it's harder to try out on streaming because video game streaming is tricky and not worth it most times. The other thing with video games is there's a dichotomy here. I want to tell you the dichotomy between these two things. Not just that one's Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, a game that looks so good, one of the best art styles, and One Piece Odyssey, which is a fun turn-based One Piece RPG that I haven't played yet because I need to read more of the manga. Switch versus PlayStation. Okay, so these are the two consoles I'm on, and that is Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5. These are like my two main things. I don't do Xbox, though there's an Indiana Jones game on Xbox coming out, which is tempting. But I don't know if I want to buy a whole Xbox for it. But anyways, getting off track. But the point is, with Nintendo Switch, you have your cartridge in the box, and this gets you the game. And it runs the game off of here. And your Switch system will save the data. And there's also cloud backup if you're on Switch Online, like me, a sucker. You save data, and then your update data and your DLC data is what's on your like SD card. So if you buy the game digitally, you have to put the entire game plus all the actual DLC and all that. So there is definitely a benefit to having a physical Switch cartridge, because the Switch, as much memory as you can put on a micro SD, that gets really expensive because they do have up to like 1 terabyte support, I believe, on Switch, or more than that. That's still an expensive micro SD card, and the system doesn't have that much on its own. So you're going to need to, it's helpful to have the physical copies for Nintendo Switch. On PlayStation, this is just a key. With 90% of the PlayStation 5 games I own, you first of all can only run PS5 games off the system, not off an external hard drive like the PS4 could. That's better for load times and overall like game performance, so I don't mind it too much. But that also means that when you put a disc in, it starts copying things. Because I think, and I can't confirm this because I'm not a huge gamer person, I don't know all the tech details of stuff. I think this is just copying off the disc the game to your system, and then you update it, because you need the disc to activate it, say, oh yeah, I did purchase that, but the file size seems to match the digital file size listed on the PlayStation Store. And then if you got a PS4 game that you upgrade to PS5, you still have to put that PS4 disc in your system, but you're still hosting an entire digital game. So the question becomes, why buy physical? And I think it probably was PlayStation's intention, to be honest. But the thing is, I got the physical copy of One Piece Odyssey because I got it cheap with the statue as a Bandai Namco store thing. Otherwise, I probably would have bought it digitally, which I do with a lot of PS5 games, especially fighting games. I'll just get them digital because the file size is the same. There's really no benefit to the physical disc, and because of how many updates games get, you just gotta make sure you have it installed. I keep a copy of all my games on my external just in case, like they get delisted or something and I can't, install them again. But yeah, it's kind of video games ain't doing well in the physical market. And I don't really see much of a benefit on the PlayStation side. Now, before I get all like, oh, I'm all physical Switch games, it saves the space, there's One Piece Pirate Warriors 3. That's a digital. Fire Emblem Warriors, sure, I bought that physical. Samba de Amigo Party Central, that had a digital deluxe edition that made me go buy digital. I have a lot of games on Switch. Not all of them are physical. I prefer to get physical if I can, but sometimes there's good digital deals. Sometimes games no longer have their physical in print, like Digimon Cyber Sleuth. I picked that up here, cheaper this way. I got a ton of games on here, and I still got space, but I think offsetting the space thing with physical copies has been beneficial in the long run. Now, one of the downsides we don't talk about enough is the space that physical media takes up. For example, here's an entire cabinet full of Blu-Rays. And here's an entire other cabinet full of Blu-Rays. It takes a lot of space to own a huge physical media collection. For example, owning all of Star Trek physically takes up a lot of room. But if you owned it in a digital library, or if you just watch it on streaming, it doesn't take up much space in your house. But of course, there's sense of ownership that streaming services, studios can't take this away from you, and that's one of the biggest benefits. Which is why I say, if you really love something and you can get it on a physical disc, by all means get it. Plus, if you go to conventions and meet celebrity guests there, you can get your Young Indiana Jones DVD signed by Sean Patrick Flannery, which is what I did this past week, and I just wanted to show it off, and that was a rough transition to get there, but you know what? Look at that. Isn't that cool? You can't do that with streaming. Also, on a side note, there's Young Indiana Jones bonus features that aren't on the streaming version, but you can watch the show on streaming to decide if you want to invest in that. And that's, I think, one of the biggest benefits of streaming is kind of being able to watch stuff without having to put as much money up front into it. So, yeah, space, physical versus digital, big discussion with comic books as well. And that's actually something that I think, compared to other things, I will mix and match comics more. And let me explain. I just did the glasses push-up thing. That was really annoying. But anyways, let me explain what I mean. So for manga, for example, I'll always prefer physical copies because there's just something about the way the paper is that you just don't get digital. Digital, it's all white. The white part is all white. Kind of like my face with this light hitting me. But the pages themselves on physical manga is just something special. It just feels right. It's more gray. It's less bright white. I like it. I prefer it. That being said, digital manga services like Shonen Jump are really good for reading stuff for a really low price. So if I'm just going to read something I don't think I'm actually going to want to physically own later, or try something out like I did with One Piece, I tried it out there before buying all the box sets, it kind of works out. One of the dumb things is buying digital comics. And this is not saying that anyone's dumb for buying digital comics, but the way that the companies price them. See, for example, Ultimate Spider-Man #1 in physical print was $4.99. And digitally, it's $4.99, and that makes no sense to me. I still, and this goes for movies. When you buy a digital movie for $25, when the Blu-ray's $25, why is it not cheaper digital? You're not getting a physical copy. It's costing them less. Why is it not costing you less? So yeah, it's a discussion. I don't think I really need to have the full discussion. But the thing is that yes, you get advertisements in your physical print comics. So the digital's more expensive because you're not getting ads. But then how does that work for indie books where they're the same price? It's a thing the comic book industry is grappling with. And that's also why, single issue wise, physical print comics still outsell digital from everything we've heard. But companies, publishers should be taking digital sales into a factor because not everybody really wants to go and have a huge collection of floppies. And on the flip side, some people may not be able to, since you can only get single print comics in comic shops. You can't really get them in grocery stores and physical stores as much as you used to, back in the 80s, 90s. So your options are limited. You may not be able to buy your comics monthly and want to read them monthly, and so digital is a good option for that. But I don't think they should be the same exact price. And for me personally, because I do luckily still blessed to have multiple comic shops in my town, I will still buy physical print comics monthly to support titles I want to support. But I don't buy everything. Because the thing is, as somebody that reads way too many comic books, the streaming service equivalent to this, DC Universe Unlimited and Marvel Unlimited, I both have annual plans to. The thing is, with Marvel Unlimited in particular, I read all of the Krakoa-era X-Men stuff, 3 months delayed from the physical print versions, which is fine by me. I don't mind being a little bit behind, but I saved thousands of dollars because most of those comics weren't that great, and I don't feel like I ever need to read them again. So I paid, my $100 a year instead of paying $4 per book and times 12, 13 X-Men books a month. That kind of thing. Same with DC Universe Infinite Ultra. While I end up buying more DC because they tend to make some of my more favorite characters more often in comics, there's, I don't buy Superman monthly. I read it here. And with DC Universe Ultra, it's only 1 month later, so there's that. Now, on the flip side, if I do find I really love a book that I wasn't sure about, like the Shang-Chi comic that was recently done, I did go back and buy all the trades for this because I really loved this. Same thing with like Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. I'm looking forward to the omnibuses of those to be my physical print copy. And that's kind of how I handle, you know, the Marvel and DC a bit. I buy some of the books monthly, the ones I really want to support and are my favorite characters, and then I'll read others on their digital services and buy the trades later. Which is also really frustrating when Marvel canceled like Avengers Inc. because it didn't sell very well in single issue, when my plan was to read it on Marvel Unlimited then buy the trade because it's an Avengers title. I felt like that should have sustained itself. And it's frustrating that Marvel doesn't take all of everything into a factor. Trade paperbacks are the majority of the way people buy Western comics because you can buy these at Barnes & Noble, and you can buy them on Amazon and Books A Million, and you can buy them at bookstores. Whereas you can't do that with single issue comics. And I think Marvel only looking at single issue sales is a mistake. DC, on the other hand, you know, they actually look at the combined total, physical, digital, you know, DC Universe and trade paperback sales. And I think that's a much healthier way to do it in this modern era. Now, just because I have, you know, a huge Marvel and DC library at my fingertips doesn't mean I like reading everything there. Older comics, you know, like Commandy by Jack Kirby. This is on DC Universe Infinite. I don't know if it's just because of the way older comics are written or drawn or the color process. It just doesn't feel right reading them digital. I will do it in some occasions, like DC Universe puts up some older titles that have never gotten reprints. But if I have a preference, I'd rather read Commandy in print than read Commandy in digital, just because it doesn't feel right reading it digital. I have no problem with modern books, but classic ones, I tend to prefer the physical print. And this is not to like pump myself up, but I always buy non-Big Two books, you know? If it's on digital purchase, I don't really do digital. I don't do Comixology Unlimited anymore, even though I used to, because the whole Kindle interface thing that Comixology did kind of ruined it for me. But, you know, if it's a Hellboy book, I'm going to buy a physical print, even if I hadn't read it before, because it's Hellboy. Or if it's Radiant Black, or if it's, you know, the Power Ranger stuff. Like, I tend to go for the non-Big Two books in both monthly and trades, more so than, you know, the Marvel and DC, where I tend to trial run them before I buy them if I'm not sure about it. And that's just how I deal with comics. I still have like way too many, and I still have too much of a backlog, but that's true of pretty much every comic reader on the planet. So that does it for this quick little discussion. Tell me your thoughts, comments below. I think I provided a lot of topic ideas. And yeah, let me know what you think. What's your preference on physical versus digital and all that? I think all forms are valid as long as you're still experiencing art and storytelling, because I think that's ultimately the important part at the end of the day. But, you know, we all have our preferences for how we like to enjoy media, and I think it's interesting to discuss them. Also stay tuned, because yes, the Marvel Legends Rundown is coming. You know, that's all the Marvel Legends behind me. That was purposefully done. It's been a lot of work. 183 Marvel Legends came out in 2023, so yeah, we're going to go through all of them this Friday. So hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out. Hit the like button, you know, so that more people kind of enjoy this video. And let's just kind of discuss the topic in the comments down below. Also, a special thank you to all our channel members. If you'd like to join as a channel member, please check the description or the join button down below. You can also find our live streams on this channel Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can find our Discord in the link below as well. My awesome graphic designer who did the Marvel Legends rundown thumbnail is on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643, and Hero Club at heroesclub.com for comic news, interviews, and more. So that does it. Until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.